I just got in a Ford Fiesta ST that we are going to rebuild. So it's not like the M135 that is crash damaged. This one's engine has blown. So before getting the M135i, I was looking for either a Fiesta ST, Golf R, Golf GTI, or maybe even an RS3. But of course, when I came across the M135, I just could not say no. But I've also been looking for another project car while I'm busy with the M135i. And this is where the Fiesta ST comes in. So a couple of good things with the car: it does actually come with some keys, so we don't have to get that sorted out. The whole bodywork, everything is in tip-top shape. The interior is all good, no airbags have gone off, so we don't need to change anything on that. The only problem is the engine has blown. So the plan of action is to get the car in the unit, lift it up, remove the whole front completely, remove the engine and the gearbox, keep that same gearbox, and then put the new engine in, get that engine all up and running, put everything back, and then get the car back on the road. So let me know in the comments below if I should keep this car as a daily driver, or once we are done with it. I am thinking of keeping it as a daily driver, but let me know in the comments below if I should keep the Fiesta ST as a daily driver. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So there's no compression in the engine. So instead of trying to fix the engine itself, what we're going to do is just swap the engine over, take the old one out, pop the new one in with the same clutch and gearbox, because we know this clutch is also good. So we're going to keep the gearbox in, keep the clutch in, just change the engine, do a bit of a swap over, and get this car back on the road. So enjoy this journey. Alright, so first things first, I knew this was going to be quite a big job ahead, so I asked my pops if he could help me out on it, and he was more than happy to assist. So first things first, we are going to remove the battery and the two front tires. That gives us access then to the fender liners on either side, which allows us to remove the front bumper. Once we get the front bumper off, we can take off the radiator pack, headlight, coolant bottle, and loosen up all the coolant hoses. Once that's done, then we have to move on to the electrical wires and petrol lines. Once we get that sorted, then we can lower the car, hoist the engine up, pull the engine out, take off the gearbox, put it on the new engine, and then pop everything back on all together, fit everything back, and the engine should be good to rock and roll. So for now, catch us back in action as we continue to strip the front. Now with the headlight removed, we will have more access to disconnect the coolant hoses, any electrical wires that connect to the fans, spotlights at the bottom, or anything else that we can disconnect to get the front bumper off. So to remove the fender liners from either side did take us a lot longer than usual, because they did have aftermarket mud flaps on, which had a couple of extra nuts and bolts to it. So once we got those removed, it was a lot easier to gain access to all the bolts and nuts to remove the front bumper, so we can gain access to the front. After loosening up that last bolt right at the bottom, we were able to remove the front bumper and have a look at the radiator pack. As you can see here, they have added in an aftermarket intercooler, which is quite big for such a small engine. Now it's time to move on to the front crash bar with the radiator pack. So that's just a couple of bolts on either side. Disconnect all the coolant hoses and electrical plugs that connect to the fan and all of that. And once those were disconnected, we were able to take it off in one shot. So the last two things to disconnect was the electrical wires connecting to the Huuge for the car, and then one very stubborn bolt that connected to one of the lines for the aircon radiator. Once that was removed, as you can see, it comes in a complete unit, so very easy to take on and put back. Now it's on to seeing exactly what we need for the new engine, any electrical wires or plugs, especially a couple of them lines, making sure that everything is on the old engine, what we can take from there and put on the new engine, and yeah, just connect everything all together. So as my dad is removing a couple of the wires and plugs from the old engine, I am putting them on the new engine just so that it makes life a lot easier down the line when we want to connect it to the gearbox and put the engine back in the car. Now there are quite a lot of sensors that run down the main harness, so always be on the lookout for any sensors, whether that be camshaft, crankshaft, anything like that. It does run from the main harness that comes across, and you definitely don't want to be cutting wires or anything like that, because it will give you a lot of grey hairs when you want to start the car. As you can see, it is a bit of a back and forth process getting all the stuff from the old engine, popping it on the new engine, just to make sure that when we put in the new engine, everything is there for us to connect. So all the old plugs and wires, anything that we can connect already now, will of course make our lives a lot easier once we put the new engine back in. As you can see here, I am disconnecting a couple of sensors that run down all the way from the top through to the bottom of the engine that comes along on the main harness. So just keep an eye out for the small little plugins that are very easy to disconnect, but do give you hassles if you don't. Now it's time to lift the car up just to have a good look of what's underneath. Disconnect the exhaust right after the catalytic converter, and then the nice thing is we are going to also disconnect the drive shafts from both sides, just so that when the engine and gearbox come out, it comes out complete. So to change over the gearbox, it will be a lot easier onto the new engine instead of having a bit more of a hassle in the long run. Next, it was to disconnect the gearbox mount from the car. Of course, that is a couple of screws just so that the gearbox can come out nice and freely. And this is the new engine that we will be putting in the car, connecting all the plugs and wires to it so it can fit in perfectly. If you guys like what you've seen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it with anyone you think that will enjoy this two-part series of removing and putting in a new engine, and I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. At Fiesta FT or F5i, I was looking at either Fiesta FT